What would you do if speaking the truth became the highest risk imaginable? Watch closely, think critically, and decide how courage shapes history, because sometimes the most powerful moments aren't just in courtrooms. They're in the choices we make under pressure. The courtroom was tense. A silence so thick it seemed almost palpable. Jasmine Crockett stood poised, facing what many could barely comprehend, an alleged $2 billion fine issued by Judge Stephen G. Breyer. A penalty for simply speaking truth. Phones flashed. Cameras clicked. Across the country, millions of viewers scrambled to understand what they were seeing, trying to process the audacity of a judicial act punishing candor and transparency. In that charged moment, the room seemed suspended between disbelief and anticipation. Crockett remained unshaken. Her posture was confident, her voice steady, her gaze unwavering. Years of navigating political pressure and legal scrutiny had prepared her for confrontation. But nothing could compare to the sheer magnitude of this unprecedented scenario. Observers could sense the electricity in the air, the weight of potential injustice juxtaposed with the calm of a leader who understood her power. Every eye in the chamber followed her movements. Every microphone caught her every nuance. The fine itself was staggering. $1 billion. The number alone created shockwaves through newsrooms and social feeds. Legal analysts scrambled to contextualize it, searching for precedent, but none existed. Across social media, the story spread like wildfire. Citizens debated the implications: free speech, judicial overreach, and the symbolic consequences of punishing a public servant for truth-telling. Yet amidst this uproar, Crockett's measured composure projected authority. She understood that in moments of extreme pressure, control of presence was as vital as control of argument. As the verdict echoed through the room, murmurs turned to whispers, whispers to gasps. Staffers exchanged bewildered glances, journalists typed furiously, and viewers at home leaned closer to screens, captivated by what appeared to be an impossible legal and political drama. This was no ordinary hearing. It was a high-stakes performance in real time, a test of resilience, intellect, and moral clarity. Crockett's response was immediate. She addressed the situation with precise, deliberate language, highlighting the absurdity of punishing someone for speaking facts and holding power accountable. If truth is a crime, she said calmly, then accountability becomes rebellion, and rebellion has always been the engine of progress. Her words rippled through the room, resonating far beyond the courtroom. The phrase became a rallying point, a lens through which observers could view the tension between authority and moral responsibility. Her argument was more than verbal defense, it was strategic. Each sentence built upon the last, layering logic with emotional resonance, creating a rhythm that drew listeners in. She reframed the scenario, shifting it from potential humiliation into a demonstration of courage and moral leadership. Observers could see it not just in her words, but in her subtle gestures: a steady hand, a measured pause, a controlled facial expression, all reinforcing her authority and command over the moment. Outside the courtroom, social media ignited. Analysts, commentators, and citizens dissected every phrase, debating the symbolic meaning and legal hypotheticals. Memes and viral posts spread rapidly, amplifying her message. Educators used the scenario as a teaching moment on free speech, civic engagement, and the limits of authority. Political strategists noted the careful balance of strength and clarity, recognizing a powerful display of leadership and poise under pressure. Throughout, Crockett maintained control. She spoke not from fear, but from principle, emphasizing transparency, integrity, and the enduring power of truth. She illustrated that influence and authority are measured not by threats or fines, but by steadfast adherence to principles. Observers at home, in the courtroom, and across the political sphere were captivated not just by the drama, but by the undeniable lesson in resilience, strategy, and moral courage. The courtroom had become a stage. Yet it was also a mirror reflecting the tension between individual conscience and institutional authority. Crockett's measured response transformed the narrative from one of potential victimhood into a demonstration of empowerment. Her words, actions, and demeanor established a clear reality. Power may attempt to intimidate, but reason, integrity, and truth endure. The initial shock of the $2 billion fine had set the stage, but Crockett's response reframed it entirely. What could have been a moment of disempowerment became an affirmation of leadership, ethics, and civic responsibility. Citizens watching were not passive spectators. They were participants in a lesson on accountability, courage, and the enduring strength of speaking truth to power. The courtroom drama had barely settled when the facts began to ripple outward. Jasmine Crockett's response, measured and unwavering, spread far beyond the confines of the chamber. Social media exploded with clips, quotes, and real-time reactions. Every post, tweet, and live stream amplified her message that truth, integrity, and accountability could not be silenced by threats or impossible fines. Viewers weren't just observers, they became part of a narrative that was reshaping public perception in real time. Political analysts dissected her every word. Pundits who had anticipated confusion instead found themselves analyzing strategy. Crockett had not just defended herself. She had transformed the scenario into a lesson in leadership, poise, and rhetorical precision. Her calm in the face of an unprecedented $2 billion penalty highlighted a core truth. Resilience is measured not by the magnitude of the threat, but by the clarity with which one responds. The narrative spread like wildfire. Citizens discussed her approach in forums, classrooms, and community spaces. Conversations about civic engagement and free speech surged. People debated what it meant for public servants to speak truth to power, and what boundaries, if any, existed between judicial authority and moral accountability. Crockett's example provided a template for leadership under pressure and inspiring lesson in how intellect and integrity could outmaneuver intimidation. Meanwhile, the legal world buzzed with speculation. While the scenario was hypothetical, it illuminated broader questions. Could such punitive measures ever exist? How should public figures navigate extreme opposition? Could courage under scrutiny redefine the boundaries of political and civic responsibility? Crockett's poise answered each question implicitly, showing that strength lay in principle, not just procedural victory. Civic organizations began mobilizing. Voter registration drives, educational seminars, and town hall meetings proliferated as communities sought to translate inspiration into action. Crockett's message "Truth Matters, Transparency Matters, Citizens Matter" resonated beyond political affiliations. Even those previously disengaged became participants, their voices amplified by a leader who had turned potential crisis into opportunity. In the media, coverage went from mere reporting to analysis. Experts highlighted the theatrical yet substantive nature of her performance, a demonstration that even under impossible pressure, clarity, and moral courage could shift narratives. Commentators noted how she used every microexpression, measured pause, and deliberate inflection to communicate strength and authority. The courtroom, once a place of judgment, had become a stage for demonstrating the enduring power of principle. As attention intensified, her strategy became a case study in modern political communication. Every gesture, every choice of words, every nuance conveyed more than legal argument, conveyed leadership, composure, and the power of speaking truth in the face of systemic pressure. Analysts suggested that in real-world politics, the lesson was simple yet profound. The ability to maintain poise under scrutiny could outweigh the weight of institutional threats. Public response reflected the story's emotional resonance. Citizens expressed admiration, awe, and inspiration. Stories of grassroots movements renewed voter engagement. and community discussion circulated widely, all tracing back to Crockett's.com and commanding presence. The $2 billion fine, once a figure of intimidation, had become a catalyst for civic education and engagement, illustrating how symbolic moments can spark tangible change. Even within the halls of power, observers took notice. Political leaders, strategists, and advisors recognized that a single, principled response could outshine complex legal maneuvers. Crockett's example challenged conventional thinking, demonstrating that narrative control is not about domination or theatrics, but about authenticity, clarity, and moral authority. By the end of the week, the ripple effect was unmistakable. Engagement metrics, social media trends, and civic activity all pointed to one clear fact: Crockett had turned a hypothetical legal threat into a moment of empowerment, a blueprint for principled leadership in an age of scrutiny and sensationalism. Her actions had sparked dialogue, inspired citizens, and provided a model for responding to extreme opposition with intelligence, strategy, and courage. The courtroom may have been the starting point, but the movement extended far beyond it. Communities discussed the meaning of accountability, the importance of speaking truth, and the power of resilience. Crockett's poise, precision, and clarity had created a wave that would not easily be contained, a demonstration of how leadership can transform even hypothetical adversity into real world influence and inspiration. As word of the courtroom confrontation spread, Jasmine Crockett found herself at the epicenter of a nationwide conversation. Media outlets, social platforms, and political commentators all turned their attention toward her. The $2 billion fine, though entirely hypothetical, had sparked a dialogue about the intersection of power, accountability, and truth, a discussion that now dominated headlines and trending hashtags. Crockett had become a symbol, a touchstone for what it meant to stand firm when authority is wielded against principle. The narrative wasn't confined to political spheres. Everyday citizens, educators, and civic organizations analyzed her response, dissecting the strategic brilliance of her measured statements. She had taken what could have been a moment of intimidation and reframed it entirely, demonstrating that integrity and clarity could transcend even the most extreme threats. The symbolism of her calm under pressure resonated far beyond Washington, D.C., inspiring countless individuals to reconsider what leadership and courage truly looked like. In interviews and panels, pundits marveled at how a single, precise response could shift public perception so dramatically. Crockett's rhetoric had not only countered the hypothetical fine, it had amplified her credibility and authority. Analysts highlighted her use of pauses, measured tone, and deliberate body language, every gesture reinforcing the content of her words. The lesson was clear. In a world dominated by soundbites and sensationalism, strategic communication grounded in principle could command more attention than any spectacle. Across social media, the discussion was intense. Clips of her response circulated widely, sparking debates on free speech, judicial power, the responsibility of public servants. Citizens engaged in conversations that blended political theory, civics education, and practical ethics. Educational forums used her example as a case study on resilience, decision-making, and ethical leadership under pressure. The story had grown from a courtroom drama into a cultural touchpoint, influencing discussions across demographics and political affiliations. Even within government circles, the implications were being considered. Advisors and policymakers noted that Crockett's approach demonstrated the power of narrative control, showing how composure, clarity, and ethical consistency could outweigh procedural dominance. She had created a model for leadership that did not rely on aggression or theatrics, but on precision, intellect, and moral courage. For many observers, this was a masterclass in political strategy, demonstrating that influence is derived as much from character and credibility as it is from institutional authority. The courtroom had been a stage, but the national spotlight transformed the narrative into a shared experience. Citizens analyzed every detail, from the subtle facial expressions to the precise articulation of ideas. Each moment was magnified, each word scrutinized. And yet, the underlying message remained powerful and unmistakable. Principled leadership commands respect. Even in the face of seemingly insurmountable pressure, Crockett's team worked behind the scenes to ensure that the dialogue remained focused on the values she had highlighted: truth, transparency, and accountability. Press briefings, social media posts, and community outreach reinforced these principles, ensuring that the story was not just sensational, but meaningful. The $2 billion fine, rather than intimidating, became a catalyst for civic engagement, political discussion, and the reaffirmation of democratic ideals. As discussions continued, it became evident that the impact of this moment would extend well beyond immediate headlines. Civic engagement, voter participation, and public awareness all saw measurable increases in response to the narrative she had shaped. The lesson was clear. Leadership is measured not by the obstacles one faces, but by the clarity, courage, and consistency with which one responds. Crockett had turned a hypothetical legal threat into an enduring example of strategic, principled influence. Observers marveled at the seamless blending of logic and poise. Her statements were not merely reactive. They were proactive, framing the debate in a way that highlighted the ethical, political, and social dimensions of the issue. Citizens and commentators alike recognized the sophistication of this approach, noting that it could serve as a blueprint for future leaders navigating hypersheer, high-visibility situations by the time news cycles began to shift. Jasmine Crockett's response had left a lasting impression. The story had grown from a courtroom confrontation into a broader lesson on civic responsibility, ethical leadership, and the enduring power of speaking truth. Every analyst, every citizen, and every educator who engaged with the moment walked away with a reinforced understanding: integrity, clarity, and courage under pressure are not just admirable traits. They are transformative forces capable of shaping public perception, influencing discourse, and inspiring action as the days unfolded. The courtroom drama transitioned from a singular moment of tension into a broader narrative about power, accountability, and civic responsibility. Jasmine Crockett's response to the hypothetical $2 billion fine had become more than a legal spectacle. It had become a blueprint for principled leadership under extreme pressure. The story had captured the attention of millions, drawing scrutiny from media outlets, political analysts, and engaged citizens alike. Crockett's unwavering stance had amplified her credibility and influence. Each statement she had made, each calculated gesture, reverberated far beyond the initial courtroom walls. Observers noted that her approach was both strategic and ethical. She had turned an apparent disadvantage into an opportunity to demonstrate moral clarity and intellectual rigor. The narrative had shifted. She was no longer a subject of hypothetical punishment, but a symbol of integrity, resilience, and civic engagement. The ripple effects were profound. Political discourse across the country took on new dimensions as citizens debated the balance between authority and accountability. Community organizations cited her actions as examples in educational programs, teaching students and adults alike about the importance of speaking truth, even in the face of potential retribution. Workshops and seminars focused on her strategies and rhetoric. Poise and decision-making became highly requested, reflecting a society eager to learn from her example. Meanwhile, social media amplified the lessons further. Clips of her statements circulated continuously, inspiring viral discussions about leadership, courage, and ethics. Memes, commentary threads, and analytical breakdowns all emphasized one central idea: effective leadership relies on integrity and clarity, not coercion or fear. Her calm, methodical dismantling of a hypothetical threat had demonstrated that presence, precision, and moral authority could overpower even the most intimidating challenges. Political analysts and advisors noted the significance of the moment in shaping public perception. Crockett's example highlighted the limitations of conventional power when confronted by principled resistance, even in hypothetical scenarios. The lesson was clear: credibility and character often carry more weight than procedural dominance. Observers within government, legal circles, and civic organizations recognize the broader implications for leadership, communication, and the management of high-pressure public situations. Crockett's influence extended to public engagement as well. Citizens reported increased awareness and participation in civic activities, inspired by the demonstration of ethical courage. The narrative had evolved from a courtroom event into a national lesson on accountability and citizen empowerment. Discussions about free speech, democratic principles, and civic responsibility surged, reflecting the enduring impact of a single, principled response. Throughout this period, Crockett continued to engage with the public and media, reinforcing her core message. She emphasized the power of truth, the responsibility of leaders, and the need for vigilance in protecting civic freedoms. Her actions had reframed what could have been a story of intimidation into a celebration of resilience and moral clarity. Across the political spectrum, citizens recognized that even symbolic threats could be transformed into catalysts for education, dialogue, and empowerment by the end of the cycle. The lesson was unmistakable. Leadership under scrutiny is defined not by fear or retaliation, but by clarity, composure, and ethical consistency. Jasmine Crockett had demonstrated that truth, when wielded thoughtfully and courageously, can inspire a movement, reshape narratives, and leave a lasting impact on society. The hypothetical fine, once a point of intimidation, had become a symbol of opportunity, reminder that courage and principle are often the most potent tools in moments of high stakes as communities. Educators and civic organizations continued to discuss the event. The narrative solidified: integrity, poise, and strategic communication are transformative forces. The lessons drawn from Crockett's handling of this extraordinary scenario would resonate far beyond a single courtroom, offering insight, inspiration, and a model for principled leadership for years to come.